So today's call came up from a question that I got from a prospective coach. It was kind of a question, kind of a conversation that was essentially, I'm not jacked, CJ. Like, I'm not, I don't look big. And the way they phrased the question specifically was, should I lift more? Should I get bigger before I try? Like, do I need to until I can start as a coach? And we see this question all the time in the online space, like it's not even funny, as well as in in-person coaching, in the insecurities that present coaches who are already killing it feel about not looking the part. And questions, do you have to look the part? Kind of go in these endless cycles. And I'd like to talk about that today, because we have to be straight just right off the bat. People are somewhat shallow, or they can be. There is absolutely value in being classically personal trainer jacked. People tend to make judgments by appearances. We know this is the halo effect. And as much as I deeply respect and appreciate the growth and spread of body positive and compassionate coaching approaches, and try to adapt that in my own coaching and take from that client-centered perspective, we also have to recognize that many of the most famous and successful body positive or compassionate coaches in the fitness industry right now are jacked or lean or otherwise fit a common build. There is prejudice out there. But oftentimes we misunderstand what's happening. So yes, people make judgments based on appearances, but they're not all looking for the same thing. So the first thing that's important to ask is, who is looking? Who is making the judgment? Because a lot of us, as we get in, we get this impression from the media, from social media, from wherever we get, on what the right body for a personal trainer is to have. And that is a stereotypical mass presentation body for a performer to have. Because if you're on TV, if you're in the movies, if you are on social media, you're primarily a performer as a coach. But that's not who you're talking to. So when you meet someone face to face, when they make that first judgment, when they make that first judgment and they are judging appearances, they're actually asking something different. Not, do you look like Chris Hemsworth in the MCU? What they're asking is, does this person have what I want? Does this person look to me by some kind of standards that they can get me what I want? And a couple of thoughts and examples. That 60-year-old empty nester who's just looking to kind of get back into health, maybe they've had a medical scare. I've talked to so many. I train at the Y, and we had just ended up striking conversations. I've talked to so many who tell me flat out, that coach over there, or this previous coach that I've talked to, I would never work with them. They're too fit. They're too big. They're intimidating. They don't strike me in any way as someone who can get me to where I need to go. And the ones who are working with the coaches, like they're at the YMCA, I love him to death. I won't drop his name here, but he's chill. He looks like them. He is one of them. He's optimistic. He's positive. He's fit. He's healthy, by his own standards. But he represents something that they see that they could achieve. Another example, let's say you're working with a post-novice triathlete, or your audience is post-novice triathletes, and you look like a bodybuilder, or you're a power lifter, or one of those models. Do you look like someone who can get them, or knows what you need to know to get them where they need to go? Same with special operations candidates, people who want to be U.S. Special Forces or Navy SEALs. So when we say, do you look the part, even if we take at the superficial level, at the most basic and kind of shallow level as a coach, what part do you need to look for? So this is when establishing a niche, I don't like that term, but finding the people you care about, finding your people, your community matters. Because what do they expect to see? What do they care about? And then we're going to take it a level deeper, because that question, do coaches need to look the part in order to coach, I think even misses the point entirely. I would rather coaches say, instead of, do I need to look the part? They say, how will I look if I live authentically? How will I look if I live the same life that I preach as a coach? What do I mean by that? So, if you preach an 80-20 rule, being good enough, like nailing it out, like getting minimum effective dose to get the health benefits in your life at age 50 and beyond, that's a very different model and a very different mindset. And if your clients think you look good and you still enjoy, a beer or a lasagna or something like that, that has a message, that sends a message to your clients. I think even a better example though, had to pull up his name, had to do some research. Martinez Evans is of the Slow AF Running Club. He came in 300 pounds. And he was starting to do half marathons. And he built an entire company and a brand off of coaching and products and all sorts of stuff off of being an overweight runner. Does he look the part? No. He doesn't look the part that we think of when we think running. He doesn't look the part that we think of when we think, I need a marathon coach. But the people who are overweight and want to get into that space, they see him as knowing what they need. He can help me, and I aspire to be like him. And more importantly, by living authentically, by doing the thing, he has stories that don't hit the media, that people don't talk about. In an article that he wrote, I think it was for Runner's World, he's been interviewed for a lot of places. He talked about like how early races, reaching the end, like he still makes the cutoff time, but he's paid for the photographer at the end of the thing and the photographer's left. Oh, having stories like that his clientele go, oh my God, yes, nobody else understands this. That's an instant win. It doesn't matter that he's 300 pounds. I mean, it does matter actually. It matters a lot. Because he knows the story of a 300-pound man going through this process. If you start as a, scrawny to brawny sort of process and you get to a point of pretty high strength in powerlifting or weightlifting or bodybuilding or all that sort of stuff, but you don't look it. You don't look the part. You don't look meaty. That's a story. That's a part like, hey, I can deadlift 600 pounds. I'm still small. So those guys who worry, so when you talk to a woman client, I'm worried that I'm going to get, too big. You can navigate that in your own way. If you're talking to a guy who's like, I've never been able to put on muscle, I've never been able to look jacked, you can tell your own story. Be like, hey, I don't know how you'll look in 3 years, but you can be stronger. You can lift heavier. And here's the story to prove it. So that's today's story. Do you need to be jacked? Do you need to look the part? It is naive to suggest that how you look does not affect how we are perceived in the market. But we think of perception from the wrong angle. This isn't the perception of the Instagram algorithm. I don't care about that, and I don't think coaches should. We should be thinking, how do I look, and how am I living in relation to the clients that I want to serve? So, this video will be posted to our YouTube channel in its entirety. Highlights will be posted to this Instagram, the Barbell Logic Academy Instagram up there. If you want to reach out to me, you know how to find me, either messaging this channel or CJ Gocher, my personal Instagram. And if you are an Academy student, meet me in the Slack on the Barbell Academy Slack. Thanks so much for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I will see you next week.